New information on food these days has consumers making choices on everything from cooking oils to foods with less fat or more protein. And it's a good bet you're also seeing more products using sea salt. Well, getting that crop from field to table is unlike any harvest you've ever seen. At first glance, it may look like snow-covered fields in a Midwestern winter. But this is late summer in Northern California, and these wide expanses of white are salt flats on the southern tip of San Francisco Bay.
We trace the commercial operations back to about the 1850s, where there were salt works kind of all around the South Bay in particular, but even as far north as Napa. And through a number of acquisitions and the like over several years now, Cargill is the remaining salt manufacturer here.
The salt here comes from the waters of the Pacific Ocean. Flowing south through the bay, the salty water is captured in huge ponds just north of San Jose.
We typically bring in seawater just during the summer months. We don't want to bring it in during the winter time because there's so much rainwater coming off the hills that it actually dilutes the bay and makes it less salty.
The salty water is pumped into what are called concentrators, shallow ponds ringed by levees. Then, sun and wind evaporate much of the water, leaving behind a salty brine. As the increasingly salty water is mixed with brine from other concentrators, a pinkish hue becomes evident in the liquid.
And as it gets closer to salt precipitation, it takes on a very pink or reddish color. And that's because of a halophilic organism that lives in the brine, where nothing else can live at that high saline level. This can, and it happens to be pink. And when we drain it off and we wash it, then it turns back to white.
Pumped from pond to pond, the sea salt or solar salt brine will sit under sun and wind for 3 to 5 years before it reaches the correct level of salinity.
So it starts at 3% and it gets greater and greater until it gets into the crystallizers, which is where we're standing right now. And at this point in the process, the brine is about 25% sodium chloride.
At the end of the evaporative process, you're left with a thick layer of sea salt in large ponds known as crystallizers. It looks like snow on a frozen lake. A crop ready to be harvested.
Each year we harvest 500,000 tons of salt. We harvest 4 to 6 inches in each crystallizer during the summer and during the fall. And we try to leave the remainder of the salt underneath as a mantle to have a good clean cut of salt so we're not digging into the bay muds at all.
After a grader breaks up the top layer, a harvester moves in to fill large trucks with tons of sea salt.
We do think of it as a crop. In fact, we talk about taking just the new crop from the crystallizer, which is about the top 4 or 5 inches. And we refer to it as this year's crop.
Cargill will run the sea salt through the first of several washes before stacking the harvest in huge piles, some 80 feet high. All of this salt will ultimately be processed into various grades. Most will be used in different food products, like granules for canning, a salt powder for butter, or crystals for ice cream.
As we look at the data, we find there have been about 6,000 new product introductions in the last 6 years that call out with sea salt or containing sea salt on the label or package in some way.
And there are other uses as well.
There are thousands and thousands, interestingly, of uses for salt, from setting dyes in textiles. It's used in the petroleum industry and many other uses, swimming pools, that kind of thing. But much of the salt from this facility does go to food use.
Consumer preference has prompted the growing number of products using sea salt. Some prefer the texture, some the taste.
A number of people do say that sea salt tastes different from other salt, even among different sea salts. You know, it's typically coarser, so people enjoy just the feel of it when they're cooking. Tastes different on the tongue, so it's not just the sense of taste that comes into play.
These salt flats are also important wildlife and wetland areas. The company has worked with a number of groups on recreational and environmental projects.
We found an opportunity to work with a number of agencies and return nearly 40,000 acres of marsh and wetland to public use and parks. There are all types of wildlife, so it's really neat to see as we go out there, from birds to harbor seals that congregate around some of the intake areas. And so again, trying to return some of that if we're not using it, and I think was really the right thing to do, and such a beautiful area here to take advantage of.
There's no denying that this is a very different kind of harvest from others in the Heartland, but getting this crop to market demands the same kind of focus.
It's a very unique place to work, and everyone takes pride in what they do here in the solar plant especially. And it's just a great group to work with, and it's a fun time of the year during harvest when everyone prepares, and we've got a lot of people here and all the equipment is ready, and we usually perform really well, so we're proud of that.